Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and this week might seem normal. We got new Siza, but there is that feud happening, and it's Billboard Breakdown.
I don't remember.
Look, there's a part of me that wants to consider this week normal. Pretty consistent top 10 behavior, residual fading of album bombs, a reasonable allotment of new arrivals. But that part of me is warring with the truth, the reality that as UMG and TikTok that standoff continues, if you dig even a little deeper, there's very little I can qualify as normal here, which is that lingering asterisk that's going to hang over the charts until this dispute is resolved. And given that both seem to be settling in for the long haul to the detriment of the majority of those signed to a major label, especially given Universal's ownership of publishing, it's gonna be a consistent factor I'm gonna keep bringing up in my reporting. It's not the only factor, I want to stress this. Every song and artist on the charts have their own unique circumstances, and promo tends to be most relevant in the initial push behind a song before radio even gets involved. And even then, certain acts, certain genres, they don't fit neatly into that strategy. But behind the scenes, there are a lot of frustrated artists and promotional teams that want to say more but can't in fear of rocking the boat and losing their budgets. So thankfully, I can be much louder. So let's start off in the top 10. And once again, Texas Hold'em by Beyonce is at number 1, although sadly not likely for much longer. The inroads on sales and streaming aren't quite holding up, and while there is a massive radio push, it's just not closing that margin fast enough. So contrast this with Carnival by Kanye West and Ty Dolla $ign, featuring Rich the Kid and Playboi Carti, now up to number 2. It's making a play for the number 1 on pretty much just streaming, and it could probably get there next week. The margins are that close, and I don't expect Lovin' On Me by Jack Harlow to really make much of a play at number 3. It's close to its radio peak, and streaming and sales are in decline. And I don't think Beautiful Things by Benson Boone at number 4 is really a contender here either, given that while streaming is still solid, the radio gains are nowhere as close as they would need to be. So it opens up a slightly more interesting door with Lose Control by Teddy Swims at number 5, because he's pulling out all the stops with multiple versions in order to boost sales. Streaming is down a little bit, but it's still considerable, and his radio is on a hot streak. He'll probably be the biggest challenger here, so it'll likely come down to how much Warner wants to overpower Kanye West's quasi-independent operation with their new star. So now we get to our only debut in the top 10, and it is a bit of a head scratcher, Saturn by Siza at number 6. Now it's obviously here thanks to streaming and really nothing else, but I established last week that despite being on TDE and RCA, Universal owns Siza's publishing, and yet Saturn is still on TikTok in various forms, officially. Now what's interesting is that it seems to be the only official Siza song on TikTok right now, and that to me screams that someone cut a deal behind the scenes in order to preserve Siza's momentum. Maybe this is under a different publishing arrangement, maybe Punch finally made the right phone call. Either way, it's going to be extremely interesting to see who else gets a lot of special treatment and attention in the weeks to come. Then we got a quick boost for I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves up to number 7. Not a great streaming week, but it still has so much volume there, it's not getting unseated, and it held up over Greedy by Tate McRae at number 8, which is also clearly on the downswing on radio, and it's getting rotated out. And on that note, while both of these are older songs that are naturally exiting, the fact that Snooze by SZA fell to number 9 with weakness across the board, and especially Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift slid down to number 10, it's all the more glaring evidence of how the ties to Universal and that feud with TikTok, it's getting messy here. Now that takes us naturally to the losers and dropouts. And again, I don't want to make this all about label drama in the latter category, especially as Good Good by Usher, Summer Walker, and 21 Savage. It's getting rotated out naturally and clinching its year-end list spot to boot. But it certainly feels like a factor for Drake here, given his ties to Republic, which is under Universal, as both first-person shooter with J. Cole and I Don't Give a Fuck with Yeet are both gone. As for the losers, well, we still have residual Kanye West album bomb decline as expected, with Burn at 63, Fuck Some at 82, and Back to Me at 97, Hiss by Megan Thee Stallion naturally falling to 86, and 16 Carriages by Beyonce continuing the B-side losses at 74. But the rest here, quite revealing. Forever by Noah Kahan continuing to slide hard to 91. Contigo by Karol G and Tiesto losing a lot off the debut to 90. They were the anomaly last week, but no TikTok promo means it's receiving little traction, and that's also true for Training Season by Dua Lipa falling hard to 61. And perhaps most revealing and concerning, Yes and by Ariana Grande at 28. The Mariah Carey remix, it worked for about a week, and given that she's on Republic, which rolls up to Universal, and the song really hasn't got a lot of radio traction the way one might hope. Oh yeah, Yeet was an early casualty of the TikTok UMG feud, but Ariana Grande is currently getting set up to be the much bigger one. But okay, what's now filling in the gaps? Well, let's look at those returns and gains, and you know what, sorry, I wouldn't keep bringing up the label shit if it didn't feel so goddamn obvious. In the former group, My Eyes by Travis Scott back at 100, and Prove It by 21 Savage and Summer Walker at 98. Both those are under Epic. That rolls up to Sony. And Scared to Start by Michael Markagi at 95. He's under Warner. It makes sense. And the gains are also very consistent with that. From the debuts last week, Whatever She Wants by Bryson Tiller to 22. Under RCA, End to Beginning by Dijo up to 35 under AWOL, and To Name by Fuerza Regida 83, where it's under Sony Music Latin, and Off the Return, Where It Ends by Bailey Zimmerman is up to 81, he's under Warner Nashville. Getting shipped to radio probably helped that as well. Speaking of which, the one Drake song that actually saw success was You Broke My Heart, because it got shipped to radio too. And for forward thinking and business savvy artists who often ride streaming, the fact that Drake is pushing airplay, that's very telling. And for continued gains, Soak City Do It by 310 Babies at 59, Empire, and I Can Feel It by Kane Brown's up to 55, he's on RCA Nashville, rolls up to Sony. The one exception I don't really have a clear answer for is Cole by Dylan Gossett up to 73, he's tied to Mercury Republic. The song is also no longer on TikTok. Might be a case of one last viral boost before it collapses because Nashville radio's not really on board here. Although apparently it's just been remarkably consistent on Spotify, and that's held over some losses above it. I might be able to buy that. But now it's time for our new arrivals. And again, spoiler alert, the UMG TikTok feud, it's spilling all over here again for another week, and I just know the impact on some of these, it might piss you off. Starting off with number 99, Easy by SSERAFIM. We're starting this off with a tricky situation, because not only is this the first song from this K-pop group to cross over to the Hot 100 proper, they're under Source and YG+, distributed by Geffen Interscope. The song is still on TikTok, and here's where I want to stress there is a limit to how much I know about the behind-the-scenes label rights, arrangements, and policy, especially when it comes to international acts and where the jurisdiction falls. There is gonna be a lot of weird edge cases all over the map here. Quite frankly, I would prefer to stick to talking about the music, as while I've been aware of this group's worldwide success for a couple of years now, this is the first song of theirs that I have really taken in, and oh boy, I have to hope this is not a good introduction, because this is really rough. The vocal mixing is slapdash when it's not run through so many pitch shifted filters. The trap percussion sounds grainy as hell. The melody is this off-key, blurry fragment, and it all sounds alarmingly cheap. And yet, I can't even say there's much energy or wild verve from K-pop to sell it. For a song all about trying to sell how they're so talented that they make it look easy, I mean, effortless can both mean the appearance of sticking the landing with poise and, well, just the lack of effort. I don't want to say it's the latter, but man, I don't see the hype with this. Let's move on. Number 96, Let's Go by Key Glock.
I'm tired of buying jewelry, finna buy some land. They still trying to figure out who I am, who I be.
Alright, from what I've heard from Key Glock thus far, I'm not against a new song slipping onto the charts, especially as he's backed by the late Young Dolph's label, Paper Road Empire, and thus can muster some virality from this cut from his album from last year. And honestly, not a lot to say with this one. The content's flexing, brand name porn, gunplay, and then telling his girl to take Plan B so she doesn't get pregnant. charming, and it's over a pretty decent sample loop and grinding trap percussion that might be decently mastered, but still sounds cheaper than it probably should, especially as the song barely clears 2 minutes. I mean, if Key Glock brought a little bit more vocal intensity, I would probably like it more, but as it is, yeah, I'm sorry. Just okay. Number 77, Wine into Whiskey by Tucker Wetmore. Okay, I can't be the only one who's starting to get a little bit skeptical whenever I see a country act with no other songs besides the one that went viral on TikTok, and then I look at all the indie country acts I review and wonder why they don't catch the same sort of fire. But fine, whatever. This is the one song we have from Tucker Wetmore at the moment, where I somehow have a bigger presence on social media and YouTube than he does, and oh wow, someone really wants to rip off Morgan Wallen. The painfully canned vocals, the desaturated electric guitar, the really flimsy percussion. I mean, I kind of want to be kind to this guy because he is independent at the moment, but the limited production budget is really showing through here. And it's kind of a shame because I generally like the writing, where Wetmore is the guy on the other side of a breakup, watching his ex drink away her pain for trying to help change or fix him, and yeah, it really backfired. And I like the song doesn't let him off the hook or try to shoot back with any sense of condescension. It's just a bad situation all around. The framing's really good. I don't know, there is a seed of quality in the writing I want to see expanded and go further, but the execution, I don't think it's there. Decent enough, not great, at least not yet. Number 76, Don't Let Me Go by MGK.
I'm coming back, just let me go, yeah. I'm coming back, just let me go. I'm coming back, don't let me go.
You know, I was gonna comment on all of Machine Gun Kelly's recent antics, that tattoo, changing his stage name to just MGK, trying to pivot back into rap because his label couldn't do nearly enough when he went pop punk. Tickets to My Downfall is a case study of Bad Boy and Interscope screwing up royally. It's frankly inexcusable, but then I realized that MGK is under the UMG umbrella and he's apparently trying to roll out new music. Someone get this guy competent management, for the love of God, this is getting embarrassing. But alright, the song here... Look, I am more forgiving of MGK than most. It's not always the best strategy to go for the vulnerable spare ballad to open up your album run. It reminds me a lot more than it should of Lonely by Justin Bieber. But you know what? MGK is a decent enough rapper, and the storytelling feels heartfelt. Talking about depression and addiction and the bad relationship that he had with his late religious father, and even Megan Fox's miscarriage when they were trying to have a baby. The song is just brittle and really sad with the piano loop and the clicking percussion, but it's also raw in a way that MGK seems to recognize will not be embraced by everybody. After all, most people refuse to read between the lines on an MGK album. He knows that, and it leads to an ambiguous hook on whether he wants that attention or not. So as a whole, look, I am the guy who went on at length exploring the whole mess of mainstream sellout back in 2022. I can call this pretty good in good conscience, but I also have no illusions that it's gonna work for the majority of folks or it's gonna stick around. It happens. Number 62, Old Days by Lil Durk.
This just scared me so much, I ain't visit her in months. She don't visit me more than them, he only visit me just once. All the rest got out before Uncle, they around here like it's nothing.
You know, if we are looking for rappers who could capitalize on UMG being out of the TikTok picture, anyone signed to Alamo could make a move. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised to see Rod Wave get in the mix as well in coming weeks. But Lil Durk is ready with that lead-off single for his next album, and this is one of those tracks I really wish I could praise more, except for that one bad decision, because I like the content a lot. Against the faint, wheedling melody, Lil Durk raps about those lost to the streets, where he'd rather connect with his family, or help try to bring some order to Chicago, like what Meek Mill's tried in Philadelphia, where he knows that the killers will probably have to be the ones who fight for peace, instead of the rappers who aren't in the streets and play up the conflict, push back against those who have dishonored themselves, or drive up provocation without understanding that life or the cost of it. Hell, after the second verse, Lil Durk just stops rapping altogether. He talks about systemic police brutality and how there's no point to this bloodshed anymore. There's nothing left, where he wants to lead the effort to rebuild. and it's great stuff. Durk's writing in this territory has gotten a lot smarter over the years, and man, he can sell the pain and resonance about being willing to work to make it better. So why the hell did Southside mix the bass to sound like total ass? This isn't a banger. Why have your beat clip the mix and distort your words? That's not meta commentary on drill, it's a production mistake. So yeah, outside of that, I like this a lot. Man, it should be great though. Number 56, Love On by Selena Gomez.
Wait till I turn my love on. I'm no cheap thrill, I'm a roller coaster ride, baby, jump on. Come on, cause baby, if you can't tell, you're what I wanna love on.
And going back to artists who probably should not be pushing new music while they're under Universal, we got Selena Gomez at Interscope, that rolls up to Universal. She's got another single. I'm torn on whether her name has enough radio clout to sustain traction with this. I mean, that and the video are the only reason this is charting at all, but it's here, and oh dear, someone thought it'd be a good idea to push towards new disco for Selena Gomez, and it does not work at all. First off, I've been saying this for years, Selena Gomez's limited vocals are best complemented by production that fits her within it, not something that she has to command. So new disco is already questionable before you bring in the Monsters and Strangers as the production team for all these canned synths that cannot sell any attempt at elegance, the filmy percussion, and a bass line that frankly needs a performer who can actually ride it effectively. That is not Selena Gomez, especially when you take a look at the lyrics, where right from the intro, they just feel overwritten and clunky and trying to stuff words into a love song that's trying for sensuality but has no subtlety. It doesn't remotely stick the landing. Turn my love on, it's already a rough turn of phrase, but lines like screaming yes in quotations, time stamping when you fell in love, and then trying to convince someone to ditch an expensive dinner with steak tartare to then make out in her car, it doesn't work for this vibe. If it wasn't for the fact that they actually spent money on a music video, I would be convinced they were dropping this now to clear a contract or something. And even as someone who likes Selena Gomez, I'm sorry, this sucks. Pass. Number 54, Holy Smokes by Bailey Zimmerman.
Something about us, hell of a rush, falling in love, lighting up them holy smokes.
You know, I was wondering when Bailey Zimmerman was going to start pushing for that next album. With Morgan Wallen's TikTok promo out of the picture for now, Zimmerman being on Warner Nashville gives him an opening for a new lead-off single. And what is it with people I'm rooting for not delivering up to their best? Granted, I see the logic with this one, reminiscing on a teenage love story with a bunch of biblical imagery. He's playing the exact same formula he had with Religiously, which was a way bigger hit than it had any right to be. And when you pair it with solidly balanced organic percussion, I get why someone might think it would work. But something's missing here. Maybe it's the over-polished mix, especially around the backing vocals, that really doesn't work when you have a voice as craggy as Zimmerman's is. Maybe it's the lack of a full punchline on the bridge to add another layer of dimensionality to the song, maybe a little bit more going on. I mean, I like this more than Religiously. Not hard, that's one of the weakest songs he's ever cut. But I don't like seeing Zimmerman's edge being de-emphasized, especially when in modern country going forward today, that grit matters. So as it is, I mean, it's okay, it's not special. And finally, number 6, Saturn by Siza.
Life's better on Saturn. Got to break this pattern of floating away.
So I know that SZA's teasing that Lana album, and suddenly given the questions around her publishing, I think I understand why it might have been quietly delayed time and time again, but apparently this is the lead-off single for it. And given what we have seen this week on the charts, let's get one unqualified good to great song, and thank God it is, where we see a return to the glossy, ethereal, immaculately produced vibes of Good Days, but with a heavier splash of gauzy synths around the reverbed guitars and the gorgeous backing vocals in order to play up all the spacey themes. And that's kind of funny, because the actual text of this song screams frustration and, well, pardon the pun, alienation. SZA is bored and frustrated with the world that promised all the success in Nirvana and hasn't really delivered any of it. But what's interesting is that she's also keenly aware so much of this is in her own head and driven by her actions. The second verse in particular references both sides of karma, and she feels like she hasn't received either, good or bad. I think what this song yearns for is passion, which is why Saturn as a symbol makes a certain degree of sense. In Roman myth, it was linked to fertility and bounty, and thus when you pair it with some literal longings to escape Earth for a distant, beautiful planet, kinda makes sense. Although that being a gas giant, it could just be her blowing hot air. I don't think it's better than Good Days. There is something so intricate yet organic about that song's sprawl that captured something in the moment that felt unlike any other. But if this production style is a hint for Lana, yeah, color me excited. Really damn good song. And yeah, it's easily running away with the best of the week. Honorable mention, I'm gonna say Old Days by Lil Durk, although MGK was a lot closer than you might have thought. Worst of the week, Love On by Selena Gomez, which does not remotely work at all, with dishonorable mention going to, sad to say it, Easy by SSERAFIM. I'm fairly certain they have to be better than that single. Let's hope better songs of theirs chart in the near future. Next week, I sadly don't expect anything from Schoolboy Q, given that he's on Interscope, he won't get the TikTok promo, and we're not so lucky to get an album bomb. We'll have to see what'll fill in the gap. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.